Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy. Do you want to make your BMW Z4 sound a little more aggressive? I'll show you how. All right, y'all, so let's talk about this project a little bit and why you may want to do this yourself. Now, the one thing about the G29 Z4 is that in its stock configuration, it can sound a little mild. Well, Valvetronic has a brand new exhaust for this car that's definitely going to change that. I want to walk you through this whole process. The install is pretty straightforward, and so I'm going to take you through every step so you can do this install yourself. Now, one thing really quickly, you can already tell the cars on Quickjacks here behind me. This work is going to require a jack or jack stands or Quickjacks or something similar. Always be safe when you do this. Do not do this with just a jack alone. Make sure you use jack stands. Don't bet your life on a 50-cent part, all right? Make sure to check out something like Quickjacks as well. They work really, really well, and they're worth the investment when you do work like this all the time. So let's jump in. Let's get started. I'm going to show you what it looks like underneath. All right, y'all, so let's take a look at what we have here underneath. Now, this particular Z4 already has an aftermarket back box on it, so we'll talk about that a little bit, but the process is going to be essentially the same as we go through the install. Now, as we work our way up the line, you can look at these big support strut bars. We're going to be talking about these as well in a second, and working around these. So you can see when you work all the way up, where your single channel mid pipe comes down, splits into the two paths. You have your cross brace here in the center. We work our way up the car. We have our center hanger here, and we have our upper V-band clamp right here that holds us all into place. And unlike a lot of BMW exhausts, this is not like a flange clamp. This is more like a V-band that sleeves onto your downpipe. So getting this off, it's not hard. It just can be a little bit of a challenge to wiggle this down and off your downpipe, but we'll work all of that out. Now, the first thing you want to make sure to do is give this all time to cool down. Right now, the exhaust line is still pretty warm, but I wanted to show you what this looks like before we jump into it. The very first thing we're going to do is take this cross brace off. These should be 12mm bolts. You can do this really easily. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll go ahead and take those off, and then I'm going to walk you through the rest of the process. So a couple of things to talk about when you do this install. Now, you can take these braces off, this big bracing plate here. You can see these large 16mm bolts and then the big arms that go out underneath. Now, you can do that, but really honestly, there's an easier way to do it. Now, this exhaust is already cut and has these slip sleeves right here, but there is a dotted line dimple that goes around the exhaust pipe right here where it's already been pre-cut. So we only have to make a couple of cuts today where normally we would make 4. I'll show you what those tracks look like in just a second, but there's one here and one on that side, and we'd be cutting here. As we move up the pipe, if you look right here, you can see that there's like a tractor trail of dimples all the way around the pipe right here and right here. Now, even if you look at the BMW TIS, if they were going to take down, like if you're at the dealership and they were going to take down your mid pipe, they actually would cut it right here along these dimples. So to make it easier, and actually so you don't have to take all this bracing off, we're going to cut there, and we're going to cut here along the dimples. You won't see me cut these simply because they already are, okay? You can also see there's a dimple line right here as well, and that just depends on where you make these changes. You can either use this dimple line or the one that's in the middle. This is already cut, so we're gonna use the one in the middle. One thing about cutting your exhaust, you're gonna wanna use something like a Hackzall or a Sawzall. I'm a big fan of a Hackzall with a fresh metal blade. Always wear eye protection. You don't wanna get hot metal into your face. Ask me how, I know how. And in addition, you're pretty much gonna have your face under here as you look to cut along this line so you get a nice, clean, straight line on both sides. So make sure to wear a face shield and or eye protection. I recommend a face shield. So one of the very first things we're going to do is we're going to take the cross brace off, and then we're going to cut along these dimples. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so the pipes are cut, and the mid-body brace is down. So you can see nice clean cuts along those dimple lines here, which makes the pipe on this side completely loose once you cut it here. Now this pipe is already pre-cut, so it's loose and ready to come off. This side, I haven't moved the sleeve yet. Plus, there's a hanger back here with what should be, and normally is 12 or 13mm, and it's probably a 12 here on this post to take it off. And then you can take both of these pipes down and they'll come out. We're then going to walk up the body to take the mid-body pipe off, but we'll do that next. All right, so the exhaust tips on this are slightly different with a aftermarket back box, but you can see your exhaust flap controller right here. There's one on each side. There's a motor that sits up on top. So you're going to want to unplug that before you drop your back box. There's a little gray locking button, a little tab on top. You pull that little tab back and then squeeze, and then the plugs will come off. You want to get that on both sides. Once you get that off, there are two 13mm nuts here and here on these hangers on both sides. You want to pull that down. If you have an extra set of hands, this isn't a bad time, though. You can easily do it yourself. Holding it up on one side, pull those nuts, keep holding that up, pull down the other side, just lower it slowly onto yourself. Or if you have a friend to hold the exhaust tips, that works as well. So go ahead and take your back box off next. All right, so back here up at the top, you've got this 13mm nut here that's essentially on a V-band. You're going to want to loosen that. It's usually tack welded on one side, so it's not going to come off completely, but you can loosen this and then loosen the band significantly. And then you've got a 13mm nut right here, and this is the only thing holding your mid-pipe on still. Now, like I said, it's sleeved onto the downpipe. So what I normally will do is I'll undo the V-band, and then I'll undo this nut, pulling it off this post. Then what I'll normally do is let the tail end of the car side down a little bit, and then just wiggle the whole pipe. You just wiggle, 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 and just wiggle it off the downpipe. All right, so go ahead and get your mid-pipe off next. All right, guys, so you can see the entire exhaust line is out now. And in this case, the nut here on this post actually seized up on me for some reason, but it was out far enough that I could slip that flange out from underneath it. And like I said, you take it off. You can see where it was sleeved onto the downpipe. So taking it off, you just kind of take the entire pipe and pull backwards and wiggle, and it'll come off that. Okay, so now let's lay out the whole new Valvetronic exhaust and take a look at how that all lays out. So when I lay all this out, we're going to go through it a piece at a time, and I'll show you what it looks like. We're going to hang this first. We're going to hang it nicely on that post on this side. Then we'll bring this next section up, slide it onto the upper section, and that will hang. It doesn't quite reach the mid-body brace. The mid-body brace is about here. So the mid-body brace is going to sit. I'm going to put that in, and these pipes will hang over the top of that for now. We'll get those connected. And as I put all of these on, I'm just going to lightly tighten all of these clamps just to hold everything loosely. Fitment is going to be something that we're going to straighten out when we're all done. And then we'll hang the back box. Once the back box is up, really nice and easy with the hangers here on both sides, then we can hang these middle pipes. I know that sounds probably complicated and a lot of information, but we're just going to piece it up, and I wanted to make sure you saw it all together in one solid piece as we put the separate pieces up. So start at the top, I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so here we are back underneath the car, and because of the number of pieces that this all comes in, we're just going to put it up a piece at a time, and I'm going to walk you through every piece. So this top piece you can find, it goes from the 3-inch to 4-inch. You can see it has an expander, and then there's this sleeve with the bracket on it here that just slides up and down. So I just slid it up the pipe, I slid it onto the downpipe, and all of these clamps right now they're not even tight, right? Because I just want to get all these pieces in place. This nut still in place helps me just hold this bracket right here so it can sit. The next piece you're going to put up is the 4-inch pipe that goes to the Y branch. I'll show you what that looks like, but you're just going to sleeve it onto this pipe and work our way down, and we're just going to add piece after piece after piece down the line. Now what you can do is potentially hang the back box, but we'll do that in just a second. So get this top piece in, get the middle piece in where it goes from the 4-inch pipe to the Y 2-inch pipes. All right, so let me get you caught up here. I've moved ahead a little bit just because some of this is easier to hang all in place, and because some of the pieces won't hang by themselves. So start at that top piece that I mentioned. Make sure that you have this slip sleeve on for the bracket. You then slip on the Y section here, which actually ends short of your V-brace, right? So here's your V-brace. But what you can do is you can slide on the next pipes. Now, if you notice that they're flat side down, they're just resting on the V-brace, which I've put back into place to help hold it on. So I slipped on one side, I slipped on the other, and then put the V-brace in place. And now all the upper pipes will hold themselves in place. Now, fitment obviously is an issue. You know, we don't have any clearances yet or anything like that set, but once we get everything hung, we'll work out all of the clearances to make sure that nothing touches. Clearance right here is pretty tight. But we'll make sure that we'll twist the pipe You can see the pipe will twist, and we'll make sure we got good clearance. We'll get good clearance over the top of the crossbody brace as well. Okay, so keep working your way down. Now, the next thing I would recommend is actually go ahead and hang the back box. So once you hang that back box in place, you can take the next pipes and sleeve them onto the back box, and you'll have those bell housings up here as you slot the pipes over the top of these braces. Okay, so get the back box hung with those 13 millimeter nuts here on both sides. So go ahead and get those up and in, and then we'll walk through the rest. All right, y'all, so everything's back together. A couple of things that we want to talk about in fitment as we go down the line here. So once you hang the back box and these mid pipes here, you think about it, these ball joints right here are some of the most sensitive. The other ones will slip for distances, but these can't slip. So I set these first. I get these in and I make sure that the clamps are around the ball joints really nicely, and then get them tightened down. Then we work our way up. These flat sides of these pipes go to the crossbody brace. Don't forget to tighten the two bungs. There's one here and one up here. These are a 6 millimeter Allen to tighten those down, and then just work your way up. Now, one place where you're gonna have probably the tightest fitment right here is you've got a 4-inch exhaust pipe here, is right here along this line for fitment. Now, it is really tight right now, but it's close, but it's gonna fit. So I just work my way up the line and make sure that there isn't any places where it touches. I also just smack the pipe, and you can tell if it's hitting metal anywhere. So I work my way up, make sure that everything's tight all the way up along the line to the top clamp, to your 12 millimeter nut here. This bracket, make sure that it's nice and tight. Work your way all the way down the exhaust line. Now, we still need to put the exhaust tips on, so let's get that done, but we're really close to done. All right, so the last couple of things we're going to need to do, and we're going to talk through the exhaust tips and the valve controller here in a moment, but let's start with the exhaust tips. So the inner one is flexible and on a ball joint, so don't really focus on that one yet. What you want to do is make sure that the outer one has equal clearance on both sides and then is level up and down. You can adjust that with this clamp here, but get it set at a reasonable level, tighten this down so it's nice and secure, and you can make fine adjustments as you get there. Same thing for this inner one. Obviously, on both sides, they're both really loose right now, but I'm going to tighten these down to when I get the exhaust tips on to make sure that they look perfect. And then with the right fitment on your exhaust tips, which is really a matter of personal taste. Do you want them stuck out a little bit further? Do you want them recessed? Do you want them enough that you can see the Valvetronic logo? That's going to be entirely up to you. Now, a couple of things we want to talk about. Now, what is different about this car with its aftermarket back box is that it had two valve controllers where the Z4 normally only has one. So here's the OEM cable on this side. Now, the new valve controller is not going to use this line. So when you unplug this, you're going to take it, you're going to want to secure it back up behind the heat shielding in a place where it's going to be safe and dry. So right now you can see it's all set up. I've also put a little bit of electrical tape over the contacts to make sure that they don't get wet. Now, if you look up in here, you should see right here that I've got the cables for the new valve controller already routed down through the heat shield. And I'm going to show you that we actually routed this down through the trunk, because up in here, and it's easier to see on the inside once we get there, there is drain plugs essentially that we can pull, that we can get a pass through for these cables where we're going to hardwire in the controller. So get your exhaust tips on, or excuse me, get your exhaust branches on, and we'll get your exhaust tips on, and then I'll show you what we did with the valve controller. All right, y'all, so let me walk you through these last couple of steps, because what we wanted to do was hardwire the controller in. So when you look at the controller box, it has the ability to run wires all the way up and plug them into a light socket, or you can hardwire directly into your fuse block. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find an accessory fuse, which in this case we found here. You pull out the accessory fuse, and the hardwire cable you plug in its place, and then plug the fuse into the top of the block right there. So hopefully you can see what that looks like. This routes down, and the box itself is hidden back behind the carpet here. Now the cables, you can see here, we've brought in through the plug right here and is sealed off with putty, which is really, really nice, so it's still waterproof. We did the same thing on the other side. It comes all the way through, routes around, and routes back to the box back here. So that way you don't have to have it plugged into a lighter. You've got it hardwired at full time, and then you have the cables that run down, and you don't have to worry about water intrusion into your trunk and anything like that. Okay, so that should take care of your exhaust controller. Now let's make sure that all of our fitment is good. All right, guys, so here we are. We're pretty much done. Go ahead and crawl underneath, check for any last minute fitment. Go ahead and look at your exhaust tips and make sure that the logos are exactly where you want them to be. And this is really just up to your taste on the exact stagger or rake that you have for your exhaust tips. But just get those set up. They'll look really good. Generally, you want to follow the outer one being in a little bit further than the inner one, but you can set them up exactly how you like. So go ahead and get that done, and then we're going to test. All right, y'all, all done, so go ahead and clean up and put your tools away. And you can tell this isn't a hard project. It's just gonna take you a little bit of time and as you follow through all of the steps. And wow, does it make a difference. The stock Z4 can be a little tame. Now with those valves fully open and in sport mode, it is downright spicy. And if that's what you're looking for, Valvetronic is definitely it. I appreciate them in making such a fantastic product that's easy to work with, and really the installation really wasn't that hard. Please make sure to click like and subscribe. It makes a genuine difference to my channel, and I would truly appreciate it. And I'll see you on my next video.